Hello, I'm Joe. This is the eighth interview with Southern Lake Art Exhibition. I'm here with David Skidmore. Hi, David.
Hello there.
Hi. Why don't you tell us what medium you work in and why?
Predominantly I work in graphite pencil. I do like working in pastel or paint. I like colour, but ultimately I find myself drawn to monochrome. I just think that I like to play with tone. I think, and monochrome is all about light and shade, and I really enjoy working with that. Like I said, I like colour, but for some reason I'm just drawn to monochrome.
Sure. Awesome. And I meant to ask, where am I zooming you from today? Where do you find yourself in this lockdown?
Okay, so this is my new studio. My existing studio was in the house, I think, like most artists, but obviously it gets encroached upon by everybody else. So I took the opportunity to convert a garage, quite a large garage that we had up the top of the garden, into a studio, which I'd started and was an ongoing project. But lockdown, the first 2 weeks of lockdown, I managed to get it finished, and it's been the godsend really the last 3 or 4 months. So that's where I am at the moment. This is in my studio with a bit of my current work behind me.
Amazing, it is great. I'd love to know where your sort of love of art began. What's your sort of story, I suppose, where you find yourself, making art and making money off it? So how'd you get there?
I think for as long as I can remember, I've produced art. I've drawn from, like I said, from when I was little. I love plasticine. I've always sculpted, and that carried on. I did art at school. I did an O-level, and then after I left school, I went back to college and did an A-level. But that was more just to keep me to keep me producing art. So I've always produced art. I must admit, I used to do a lot of figurative art, so I like people. But then I was really quite inspired by David Shepherd, because this probably back in the early 80s, I guess. And I was fortunate enough, up in Birmingham, we had a gallery that sold David Shepherd originals, so I'd find myself visiting the gallery a lot. And I was fortunate enough to go out to Africa on safari, and that really created this sort of urge to draw wild animals. So my journey was through sort of like art, as we all do it. Like I said, figurative painting was something I did a lot of, mainly because that followed the A-level course. I then moved into animal painting, if you like, because at that time I was doing predominantly acrylic painting. And I sort of left the pencil sketching behind a little bit. It just seemed to be, just the way my art had gone. But I then I met a guy at work who was a woodcarver, local man called Bill Sprout, very good woodcarver. And I'd always done sculptural work, and so then I started carving wood. Actually, there's one of my carvings just behind me. There's a Clint Eastwood head, which is a bit of a strange subject, I guess.
Right, in some room, I suppose.
So I did a lot of wood carving for quite a few years. I probably on and off carved for 30 years. That led me. I then did a city and guilds in wood carving just because there was a master carver running it. But that also, I probably drifted away from my art a little bit at the time. And that got me back into my art in general, because you can't sculpt or carve without drawing. And so the two were combined. I joined the local art society and I picked up the pencil again, but still with no great sort of direction. and probably it was the big turning point for me was probably 8 years ago. I had cancer. I was diagnosed with cancer, and quite often people say that's got like a changing point in your life. So it makes you think. It gave me time, and it gave me time to start to spend with my art, but it also gave me time to think, what do I really want to do, and what's important to me. And family was important, and not wasting my life seemed important. So then I probably started. I just started drawing a lot more. I got inspired by people like Gary Hodges. I realised that actually I could maybe make money out of art, and that was the real point where I decided that actually I wanted to try and become a professional artist. And up until that point, I probably people like Gary Hodges, who's Gary Hodges, best-selling pencil artist in the country, and he's a wildlife artist. And looking at his work, I realised that actually this was a saleable art form in its own right. Up until that point, I'd sold portraits in local exhibitions, but I'd never really seen it as a true art form, if you like, from a sales point of view. And so that really inspired me to get the pencil out again. I really got back into my wildlife art. I think you look around, that period made me look around a lot more and think, I want to be in the countryside more. I want to see, you want to be more entwined in the world, if you like. I know that sounds a bit highfalutin. So that was a sort of a journey from when I was 5 years old to where I am now, which has took a lot of twists and turns. And now my life really is drawing and wildlife and art. And does that make sense?
That's perfect, thank you. You mentioned conservation, or sort of the safari end of things, and you describe yourself on your website as having a passion for conservation. So just like tell us a bit more about that. Like, where does that come from in your heart?
Well, I think also back in the 80s, like I said, I was inspired by David Shepherd. And at that time, I was quite involved with the World Wildlife Fund, because I think you looked around, even back then in the 80s, you looked around at what we were doing to the planet and what we were doing to animals, and you wanted to try and make a difference. And at that time, like I said, my art was more, it was a hobby. So I was more involved in the World Wildlife Fund. So I used to go shaking a tin and try and promote the World Wildlife Fund and all that went with that. And that probably, I did that for quite a few years, but I got a little bit disenchanted with that as an organisation, to be perfectly honest, only because some of their support for hunting in a measured way, if you like. And I sort of drifted away from that, and probably drifted away a little bit from, not conservation, but for doing anything about it. And it was like I said, it was this thing 8 years ago that really made me think again that we need to, you look around, not that it ever goes away from you, but then you start thinking, we do need to do something to protect what we've got. And I have this belief, and I've always had this belief, that nobody owns this world that we live in. We all have an equal share, whether we're an ant or whether we're a human being. What right have we got to determine that we can take away a habitat of another animal who've been there way before we ever got there? And it just, and they have as much right to exist on this planet as we do. And anything that we can do to help that, and to, I think it's more about educating than anything else. So I try and use my art now. I've been a member of the David Shepherd Wildlife Foundation for quite a long time. Every year I donate pieces of art to conservation projects and try and raise money. And that might be, when I say conservation projects, that might be the Vale Animal Hospital, or it might even be I did a project for Dudley Zoo to try and raise money for a new, or working with them to raise money for a new ape enclosure. Because I know that's not conservationist stuff as such, but these are still animals that have been born in captivity, and still it's our responsibility to make sure they've got the best life that they can have.
Still worth respect, definitely.
Yes. I'm an invitational artist in a thing called Sketch for Wildlife, which I've been doing for the last few years, which is run by Explorers Against Extinction, which they're a conservation group. So through that, we try and raise money for conservation projects. So for the last few years, we've raised about £50,000 through the donation of work for artists all over the world. So I think it's just, it would be nice to think I could do more, but living in Bromsgrove, and the possibility to get out there and actually physically do something isn't so easy. But all we can do is try and raise awareness and try and raise funds for organisations that can do something.
I was going to ask whether you thought art had sort of a certain power. In a similar way, I suppose David Attenborough's work on TV gets loads of attention for conservation, loads of sort of people becoming compassionate, inspired by that. Would you say your art has a similar effect?
Well, I think it does. And so that's something that I try and do with my art. I try and, I think, rather than just draw an image of an animal or a wild place, I think you're always trying to also produce something that makes people think, that makes people maybe ask a question, and also makes people aware of what we could lose. Because I think, like I said, I think it's more about education than anything, to be perfectly honest. And art, I think, is a good way of doing it. Because sometimes art can be more powerful than a TV program or a photograph occasionally, because you get the opportunity to create something different. And I think, and it's not just me, most of the people I know, most of the wildlife artists I know, that is their driving force. Not many of them are just drawing animals because they think they like drawing animals. Most of them are drawing animals because they have a feeling that they want to do something. They want to somehow improve what we think about animals and how we treat animals.
And on to sort of the idea of drawing, what would you say your process is when you start with a concept or an idea of something you want to create, but then how does that turn into the finished product?
I've thought about this one actually, and it's quite a difficult one to answer. I find I have ideas buzzing around in my head all the time, and sometimes it takes me a while that idea might not be a formulated idea, it's just a vague idea, and then usually I play with things. So I've got literally thousands of photographs that I've taken. I go and see animals whenever I can. I must admit, I watch a lot of, if there's a wildlife documentary on TV, I watch it. So it's a combination of being inspired sometimes by an animal or a story, or even just an image. So that image might be, and then I'll try and find what this idea is buzzing around in my head, which might mean trawling through photographs, it might be watching documentary, and then that'll formulate into an idea, and then I'll play with that idea until it becomes something more solid. And then I'll start working on it, sort of something like this. I'm working on it at the moment. So this particular drawing has been, it's probably been 2 years in the making, simply because the image that this is based on was something that I wanted to work with, but I wasn't too sure how I wanted to portray it. And I've kicked around lots and lots of different ideas before I land on something that I think, actually, this is how I think this is what I want this to say. So I want to portray this. And then while I'm working on this, I've got other ideas. I've always got ideas buzzing around. So I've always got other projects on the go. So I've usually got more than one piece of art that I'm working on at a time. You know, at the moment, I've got another couple of drawings that I'm working on. And sometimes I'll put an idea away because I think it's either not going the way I would like it to, or I just need some time away from it to come back to it. That's why I like to have more than one thing on the go, because it enables me to keep coming back with fresh eyes to something I'm working on. And it is a case of, and sometimes I'll be working on something, and all of a sudden I will get really inspired to do something else. And sometimes that urge is that great that I can put it aside and go for it. It's a difficult one to explain, actually. I must admit, I haven't got a my process isn't very organized at all. I tend to be very sort of driven by instinct.
You've got everything going on at once. I've actually got another one of your works in progress is on my computer. I'll just screen share it now. Not that one. This one.
Yeah. So this one's actually finished now.
Oh, is it?
This was one of my lockdown pieces, which was the last piece I finished. This again was so fairly similar to the one I've just showed you, where I wanted to I've always done fairly photorealistic type art, if you like, and I wanted to not move away from that, but just explore some different ideas. This one, the idea of this one, I've titled this one "It's Our Choice," and the reason, now that could be an fairly ambiguous title, but what I wanted to say with this is this an elephant? Is this an elephant that's disappearing? So my idea was just disappearing into the paper, but it's our choice whether these animals disappear or don't disappear. So that was the idea behind it. What I wanted to do, obviously, like I said, light's important to me, so just wanted to be a real study in light and shade, but also I wanted it to be thought-provoking as well, if possible.
Yeah.
Whether that works or not, obviously that comes down to the viewer. You can have an idea, and I can say, this is what I would like you to get out of this. Obviously, whether they do or not, it's down to them.
Well, it works for me.
Thank you.
You like your elephants, don't you? You've also got this one, which I think is also the way you are.
I do, yeah. This was another one. This was completed before that. I do like elephants. There's just something about elephants, not just the physical magnificence of them, but their interaction with each other, their social life, if you like, their family. They're such an intelligent feeling animal that they just seem, we could learn a lot from elephants if you watch documentaries on elephants. This particular one was the two calves in it were the subject for an earlier piece that I did, which got selected for the David Skidmore Wildlife Artist of the Year. So this was really, if you like, part two of that project, which was showing these calves again in this, and I just love the way hopefully that you get this idea that there's a bond between them. That there's these are animals that care for each other. And this was a piece. Lockdown gave me the opportunity to work on pieces like this where I had the time. I mean, I'd work on a piece like this anyway, but usually a piece like this might take me up to 12 months. Whereas obviously I had a bit of a chance now to really concentrate on it. This is quite a large drawing as well. So it can be quite testing for your patience sometimes.
Got real character about them. And you were talking about this one earlier. I think you said it was sort of a really sort of, you started out with it or something like that?
No, I think this was a breakthrough piece. So I'd always done a lot. When I say a breakthrough piece, I've drawn, like I said, forever. But I always treated drawing a little bit more of a sketch. And although I'd sold portraits to people, and they were quite detailed portraits, this was the first time I think that I ever. This is quite a large piece. This piece is about 75 centimeters by 55 centimeters. It's an imperial sheet of watercolor paper, and I just felt that this piece was a piece where I really thought this is a piece of art. This is a piece of drawing that I'd be happy to hang in a gallery. Up until that point, I'd always treat my art a little bit almost as if like an amateur artist. This was the first piece where I thought I can try and be a professional at this. I just felt that it was a piece that gave me the confidence to say, look, let's try and pursue this.
It's brilliant. You are a member of a lot of societies and art associations, things like that. I just want to know what value or what sort of extra they bring to your life or your career.
I think the main thing they bring is the ability. I think art can be quite a isolating career, if you like, because we spend a lot of our time stuck in our studios, beavering away. It's nice to have organisations with like-minded people where we can meet up and chat and swap ideas and frustrations, and also they give us the opportunity to exhibit in exhibitions that are geared up to wildlife. Wildlife can be quite a difficult thing to get into commercial galleries sometimes. And I'm actually on the organising committee of the Wildlife Art Society, which is based down in Nature and Art. Which, if anybody's never been to Nature and Art, which is in Gloucestershire, it's well worth a visit. It's a museum and gallery totally dedicated to the natural environment, and we're lucky enough to have that as our base. And that gives us an opportunity to have an annual exhibition down there every year. We have exhibitions in different places, but we also have a get-together weekend where we all get together. We have the words going out of my head. So we have we all meet and criticise, but not criticise, critique. We have a critique where we'll take a piece of art, and obviously we've usually got a guest speaker, and it's quite nice to have your work critiqued by others sometimes, which is they're not going to slay you, but they are going to give you an opinion, and sometimes it's important to get an opinion from somebody who's going to give you a true opinion. Not because my family are great, but they're going to say most things are okay. They rarely say, "Oh, that's a piece of rubbish." So, and I'm also a member of the Association of Animal Artists, and that is the same. It's exactly the same ethos, really. It's a chance to meet like-minded people. It's a chance to participate in exhibitions around the country, and just really express yourself to people who understand what you're talking, not what you're talking about, but your frustrations, your desires, all that type of thing. And obviously, it's probably this year more than ever with the lockdown, where it does give you the opportunity. I miss the social side of it, but we do have we've had a few Zoom meetings, you know, and it's quite nice to communicate with other people. Obviously, we don't get to have the exhibitions, you know, Southern Nature, where we're coming from at the moment. You know, normally that is a fantastic, apart from a fantastic exhibition, it's also a fantastic meeting place. There's a real atmosphere down there that is really joyful for the artists, and that's what we get out of it. You know, this opportunity to meet up and really having a good social interaction, and hopefully sell some art at the same time.
And you've mentioned lockdown a few times now. I just really wanted to sort of focus in on that and ask, what's it like to be an artist in lockdown? Sort of what struggles you've had, what new opportunities maybe have come out of it?
I think the good is the fact that I've had time.
Yeah.
I've had more time than I've probably ever had just to draw and paint. I've done a bit of painting, which is something I don't normally do these days. I tend to treat painting as a little bit more of a holiday from my drawing, because I predominantly draw. I run drawing workshops, so my life not revolves around drawing, but that's at the forefront of my artistic endeavours. So I've had the chance to play a little bit with things that I wouldn't normally have a chance to play with, mainly because all my deadlines went. You know, usually I've got, you know, you've got exhibitions, you've got commissions, so you've usually got something that you're working towards, and all of a sudden that was all taken away. So the good part about that is it meant that I was free to really play a little bit, to spend some time on some large drawings, not to have to worry about putting together workshops, not to have to worry about deadlines for exhibitions. So that was the good side of it. The bad side of it was I quite enjoy my workshops. They're obviously a form of income for me, which is something that has been quite badly missed. The same with exhibitions. We like exhibitions. I love exhibiting my work. Really, that's why I produce it. You know, I don't produce it to look at it myself, but I do like looking at it. But and although I can post my work online, I think a large piece of work, like the elephants that we're just looking at, I want to see that hung on a wall. I don't think when you're looking at that on the screen, that could be an A4 size drawing, or it could be, as it is, sort of a 1 meter long drawing, and it doesn't really, looking at it on a computer screen, you don't get the feel for that. I like to see, I think on a wall you get to see your art as you would like it to be seen. So that's what I've missed about it, is really the ability to meet my fellow artists, to exhibit, to bring some income in, which has been, I think, like most artists, has been a real downer. So it's been a real sort of, I can't say I've hated lockdown, because it's given the opportunity. You know, I've just had time to do my art, but I've really missed the exhibitions, the social side of it, and the workshops, because my workshops, again, you know, I have a lot of students that come back, and we have a relationship, and I haven't seen any of them for 4-5 months.
Sure. And I suppose focusing on your students, like for some people, this lockdown's been an opportunity for them to expect, like for people who don't do art normally, to sort of branch into it. I was wondering, sort of as a final question, what advice you'd have for somebody who's just started doing art, maybe has started thinking they could go professional as an artist during lockdown? I
think, I mean, my my advice to people always is to just go for it. I get excuse me, I get people turn up to my drawing workshops who have never picked up a pencil before. They usually come with somebody who wants to draw, does draw, and they come along with a bit of moral support, I guess. And I find that what they find is that they can actually draw. And I always encourage people, if you want to do it, do it. Take advice, but never be put off by advice. So if people say, if the advice that you get, some people might say, you're no good at this, don't ignore that advice. I'd say follow your dream and aim high. You know, look at the art that inspires you, and look at, you know, think, well, that's what I want to produce. And when I say that's what I want to produce, I don't mean copy that. What I mean is aim to get your art out there. Don't be afraid to show people your art. Don't be afraid to experiment. Don't think that your art isn't worthy. You know, whatever. I work part-time in a local school, and the art that the kids do is fantastic, mainly because they're unshackled. They do art. They don't worry too much about what people think of it, and that's what I try and encourage people to do. You should do your art for you. You should enjoy what you do, and you should be driven to do what you're inspired to do. And then if people like it or don't like it, I think that you have to accept some people will like it, some people won't. And when it comes to trying to be a professional, I think that is just a case, again, of saying it's not easy, but I think my only advice would be you've just got to go for it. And that means working hard. It means trying to get your work out there. It means being quite pushy sometimes. It means not taking no for an answer. It means, or taking no for an answer, but thinking, okay, but I'll come back again. You know, don't be afraid to, you know, I've taken work into galleries and not really got a good reception, but that doesn't mean that I don't take other work and say, what do you think of this one then? You know, because I think you have to be persistent. You have to have confidence in your own ability, and just keep going, because you'll find you can go somewhere and they'll say, oh no, this isn't for us. You need to take the same piece somewhere else, and they'll love it. You know, so just keep going. I wish I could have some more sort of concrete advice, but if you spend time around the art world, you realise that actually it's like anything creative.
It isn't much concrete.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Thank you so much, David. It's worth saying, obviously, Southern Nature has your art available for sale on the website, which is awesome. Your own details have been up there as well, which is great as well. But yeah, thank you for sort of, I suppose, giving a bit of voice and a bit of personality to our sort of online exhibition. Yeah, thank you for that. It's been good.
No, thanks, Joe. Thanks for walking me through this. I must admit, I'm not a natural in front of the camera, I don't think, but thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, goodbye.
Bye, Joe.